Welcome to From the Hip, the Hughes Initiative podcast, where we keep it real about law enforcement and how it impacts everyone. For new police officers, we have the tips and tools to help you thrive. And for the American public, we break down what you need to know about the interactions that you have with the people behind the badge. Let's learn, connect, and bring about some real change together. You're watching and you're listening to From the Hip. Let's go. Welcome into today's edition of From the Hip. I am obviously your host, RC, and I'm so glad to have you here today. We got a lot to cover, and I don't want to really waste any time, but I do want to start by saying that I'm extremely excited for the future of the Hughes Initiative. We got something big for you in store towards the end of this lesson. And today we're talking about Police Academy prep. We're prepping people for the Police Academy, and we're starting with Reading Comprehension. This is a very, 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 very important piece that I had been missing, and I do have to apologize for it. There's a lot of people out here who want to become police officers, but they don't know where to start. They don't know how to start. They don't have the confidence to start. And when you actually start looking into the different steps of the process, there are a bunch of different sources that you could get it from, but not one place where you can find it all. And so here, when we start with our Police Academy prep, especially with the Reading Comprehension, we're going to start where it begins, right? You fill out the application for whatever department or you want to get hired with, and then you have to take a civil service exam. This is one of those big parts, the civil service exam, that stops people from continuing on and ultimately reaching that goal and of being a police officer. So we got to start where it begins, with the civil service exam. And we're starting right now with Reading Comprehension. And I don't really want to waste your time. I got a lot that I want to get over and go through. So let's just get started. Today's agenda, what we're going to do today. Today, we are going to talk about how to think like a detective, think like a police officer, read for detail, because if you can't read the report, then you can't write it. If you don't have proper grammar, if you don't understand basic reading concepts, then you're going to write bad reports. And defense attorneys, I know that I have several that are good friends of mine, they're just going to absolutely rip you to shreds in court. Good police officers who write good reports don't have a whole lot of preliminary hearings. Because when the defense attorney looks at the report, they read it, they say, oh, all right, Officer RC, what can you do for us? What can you do? Like, what can we talk to the district attorney about maybe getting some lesser charges or something like that? So that's why report writing is so very important, and knowing your reading concepts and fundamentals is paramount. So let's get started. First question. Officer Lopez slowed her voice and spoke clearly so the driver would not feel nervous. What's the main idea? And for my TikTok people, if you want to see the slides, you got to go to the Hughes Initiative's YouTube in order to see them. So again, the first question is a main idea and tone question. Officer Lopez slowed her voice and spoke clearly so the driver would not feel nervous. What's the main idea? Option A is the officer was frustrated with the driver. Option B is the officer wanted to keep the driver calm. Option C is the driver refused to cooperate. And option D is the officer was giving a ticket. Which one would it be? I'll give you a couple of seconds here to get some answers in the comments so we can see what you got, what you come up with. All right. The answer is B. The officer wanted to keep the driver calm. Here's the why. Her tone and pace were meant to reduce tension. The logical connection that these civil service exams are looking for, it teaches recruits to read intent behind language, which is vital for understanding reports and interviews. Let me go back and let me stop and let me explain that a little bit for a second. Context clues, which we all learned in grade school, are very important. These questions aren't necessarily meant to trip you up, but they can if you're rushing. And so, how many people here, just give me a thumbs up in the comment, have test taking anxiety? Test taking anxiety, right? That's a big thing. It was for me for a long time, but you have to learn to slow down. You have to slow down because the way some of these questions are written, if you just kind of breeze through it, then you'll miss it. You'll miss the context clues and you'll get the question wrong. And that's not what we want. All right. Question number 2 is a vocabulary and context question. Vocabulary and context. So think about that for a second. Vocabulary in the context of the sentence that it is written. The sergeant gave a brief summary of the situation before the team moved out. Brief most nearly means what? Option A is long, option B is rushed, option C is short, and option D is detailed. So in the context of that sentence, what does brief mean? It means C, short. Before the team moved out shows it was quick. Okay? The vocabulary is tested in short context to recognize clues instead of memorizing definitions. For example, here's an opposite meaning. Here's the sentence. The cadet memorized that brief means short, but when he read, the judge gave a brief but powerful speech that moved everyone to tears. The cadet, he chose rushed because he only remembered the definition instead of using context. And the lesson we learned from that is that memorizing definitions isn't enough. Always look at how the word is used. Context gives meaning, not the dictionary alone. Because when you write reports, for example, when you write reports, sometimes you have to, how do I want to say it? Sometimes you have to write it without actually saying it. And you kind of have to build a story in that what you're writing leads people to the same conclusion that you drew. That's called articulation. So in your report, if you write that you pulled a car over and the driver was sweating, had very shallow breathing, avoided eye contact, what does that lead people to believe? What does that lead people to believe? That they were nervous. You could just say nervous, but when you go into greater detail and build that context around the word nervous, then people can arrive at the same conclusion that you arrived at. So that's very important, being able to read the context within the vocabulary. All right, let's move on to inference. This is a big one too. What can you infer? What can we assume? We just kind of talked about it. After the call ended, Officer Grant sat quietly for a few moments before turning the car back on. What can we infer? Option A is he was ignoring dispatch. Option B was the call was stressful. Option C, he was taking a break. Or option D, his car broke down. In the comments, let me know what you think, A, B, C, or D. What can we infer from the sentence that after the call, Officer Grant sat quietly for a few minutes before turning the car back on? All right, I see some B's, I see some C's, I see a lot of C's, some more B's. The answer is B. After the call ended, Officer Grant sat quietly for a few minutes before turning the car back on. We can infer that the call was stressful. How do we arrive at that conclusion? Sat quietly signals an emotional reaction. The civil service exam, the test checks your ability to pick up on emotional tone, not just guess the facts. An opposite example of this, which some people did here. A cadet reads, Officer Grant sat quietly for a few minutes and chose option C. He was taking a break because it sounds logical. The lesson that we learn is that answers guesses a fact that isn't in the text. So option C guesses a fact that isn't in the text. We said nothing about taking a break. Inference questions aren't about what could be true. They're about what the detail suggests. Always base your answer on emotional or contextual clues, not assumptions. All right. We still tracking? Good. It goes back to what I said earlier about being able to say it without actually saying it and understand it without actually having it be said to you, right? Helping you think outside of the box. A lot of situations that you'll face as a police officer may appear to be standard on the surface, but in reality, they're not. There's more going on, like Transformer. There's more than meets the eye. And as a police officer, you have to be able to pick up on that. One of the greatest skills that a good officer has, and I just put a video out about this today, was the ability to communicate with anyone. As law enforcement, you may be really, really intelligent and you may speak really, really well, but sometimes you have to come down to the level of understanding of the person that you're interacting with, because you'll just be talking over their heads if you're using words that they aren't familiar with. And you can never really build a connection if they don't feel that you understand them or that you're like them in a certain way. Let's continue. Question 4 is a grammar pronoun question. This one trips people up all the time. This one trips people up all the time. We'll get into the lesson here in a second. The question is, each cadet must turn in blank own uniform. The options are A, their, THEIR, B, his or her, C, they, or D, them. Each cadet must turn in their, his or her, they, them, own uniform. Give you a second to get your answers in. A, B, C, or D. All right. The answer is B, his or her. Each cadet must turn in his or her own uniform. The explanation, the word each is singular, and it needs a singular pronoun, his or her. This reinforces correct grammatical use of words, which is needed for report writing. The way that you text is not the way that you write. It just can't be. And when you text poorly, it's only natural that you would write the same way. This weakens your character. This weakens your intelligence as a police officer if this is the way that you write, the way that you text. I'm guilty of it, especially when I'm dealing with my children who text in shorthand all the time. And they don't necessarily, and other people don't necessarily pronounce words or write words correctly. But as a police officer, you have to be able to separate that personal use of the English language from the professional and correct use of the English language. Because here's the opposite. A cadet writes, each officer must complete their report by the end of the shift, thinking theirs sounds more natural. Right? It goes back to the way that you text, the way that you talk. It sounds more natural to say each officer must complete their own report by the end of the shift. But in reality, it has to be his or her, because we're talking about each subject matter, being combined and being correct. Next question. It's a grammar and sentence structure question. Another one of those questions that'll pop up that don't, just because it sounds natural doesn't mean that it's correct. So from these set of questions, there's 4 of them. Question or sentence A is the suspects were arrested at the store. B is the suspect was arrested at the store. C, the suspects was arrested at the store. Or D, the suspect were arrested at the store. Again, if you want to see the slides, you have to go to YouTube because that's where they are. Unless somebody knows a way to get a stream key and stream URL out of TikTok's clenched hands, because that would be great as well. So we go back to the sentences. Sentence A, the suspects were arrested at the store. B, the suspect was arrested at the store. C, the suspects was arrested at the store. And D, the suspect were arrested at the store. Choose the correct sentence. Here's a tip. TikTok, you can't see it, but on the slide, sentence has a parentheses with an S in the middle. If you have test taking anxiety and you're trying to just get through the questions because you've already given up from the very beginning, that's something that can trip you up, because the answers are A and B. The suspects were arrested at the store. The suspect was arrested at the store. Choose the correct sentence. And it's not always going to be true, but if you see a parentheses with an S on your question, make note of it. Be mindful of it. The explanation, plural subject suspects equals were. Plural subject or singular subject suspect gets a was, right? Past tense. The logic, check basic subject verb agreement. You have to check basic subject verb agreement. The opposite example is this. A cadet writes, the suspects was arrested at the store. Thinking was sounds more natural. Thinking was sounds more natural. That's not necessarily the case. The lesson, that's incorrect because the verb must agree in number with the subject. Suspects is plural, so it needs were. Grammar questions are often test attention to small details that change meaning and accuracy in reports. A lot of testing has roots in limiting the access to certain occupations by using the basic English language. We understand schools in lower income areas have children who don't necessarily get an opportunity to grasp the concepts completely. And when that happens, then they go to take tests and they look at questions and think that they are either right because that's the way they would say it, as opposed to the way that that's how it should be. It is my duty, I've taken it upon myself as my duty to help bring everyone that I can who wants to get into law enforcement to a level of understanding to where they breeze past and breeze through the civil service exam. Because this is the first hurdle that you have to go to. And then again, like I said at the very beginning, it's the hurdle that really stops a lot of people from ever getting into a career in law enforcement. Next question. It's a reading logic question. The witness said she couldn't remember if the car was red or orange. Which one of these is most accurate? The witness was certain about the color. The witness was unsure of what she saw. The witness refused to answer, or the car was orange. Rod, exactly. These tests can be cultured at times. That's very true. And the answer to this is answer B. The witness was unsure of what she saw. She said the car was red or orange. So I got a question here. So what should we be studying for reading? What are you reading from your book? This information is going to be inside of our big surprise at the end of this presentation. Okay, so we're going to talk about where you can find more of this at, and we'll be doing these type of live events with reading comprehension, basic math. I may get an opportunity to do a couple background check and oral interview questions as well here. So this will be all in what we're talking about. Talking about later. Remar Nurse says, I think nursing is better than police. It's a matter of opinion if nursing is better than law enforcement. I know there are, in a sense, gender assignments where it's natural for a woman to become a nurse. It's natural for a man to become a police officer. But there can be crossover. And what I've also found is this, because my sister's in nursing, my wife is in nursing. I worked in a hospital before. The civil service exam is very similar to what I believe is called the TEAS test, where we're looking at your basic understanding of average concepts, right? Whether it be math, whether it be English, whether it be science. We're looking at, can you get past these small hurdles before we allow you access to two of the world's greatest jobs, being a police officer or being a nurse. That's my take on which one is better. So when you see things like couldn't remember, that equals uncertainty. And the logical connection for the test, the civil service exam, is focus on qualifiers. Things like can't, maybe, possibly. They're going to be the key to your answer. The opposite example of this is a cadet reads, the witness says she couldn't remember if the car was red or orange, and answers A. We know answer A was the witness was certain about the color. Was she certain about the color? You see how that could trip you up? So, because we limit when she says it could be red or orange. Oh, okay. Well, then she was certain that it was red or orange. That's not what they're looking for. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for you to understand that she was uncertain. Because in law enforcement, when you go to interview someone about what they saw, you have to be able to strike out what is not relevant. When someone says, oh, I was standing here on the corner, I think I saw, when someone said, I think I saw, like, you got to take a pause. I think I saw a tall man. I think he had a blue jacket on. Was it blue or was it not blue? Because that translates to, okay, if you think that witness is sure about that jacket being blue, and you bring them to court and you put them on the stand, then it becomes a question of, was it blue or was it not blue? And a good defense attorney, again, is going to be all over that. And it's imperative that you understand when someone says, I think, or they give you two different options, that they probably really don't know. Let's move on. Question number 7. It's a word choice question. This is one of my favorites. This is a word choice question. Which sentence is the clearest? Clarity is very important. Which sentence is the clearest? A, upon arriving, comma, Officer Brown, comma, he went inside the store. B, Officer Brown went inside the store upon arriving. C, Officer Brown, he went inside the store. Or D, upon arrival, the inside store was entered by Officer Brown. Which sentence is the clearest? A, B, C, or D? Let's see what you got. Let's see what the answer says. The answer is B. Officer Brown went inside the store upon arriving. I used to go to a church in Youngstown, we would always tell the pastor to make it plain, which is what I try to do here. I try to make it plain for you. Because if you don't understand it, then you're not going to be able to comprehend it. And it's ultimately going to lead you to missing a question on the civil service exam. And that question might be the one question you needed to have right in order to pass. The explanation, only B avoids double subject and awkward order. The logical connection, Prioritize plain, direct writing, the foundation of a good report. Your report is it's the only thing you have to stand on. And so understand, here's a little tip. Understand how the criminal justice system works. As law enforcement, you are the gatekeepers to the criminal justice program. That's what we do. 99% of the people bring themselves into the criminal justice system voluntarily, but we have to decide how that looks and how it's presented for a judge and a jury. So you have to keep it simple. Understanding this as well, the average American only reads between a 6th and a 9th grade level. Those are the people on your jury. I've seen videos on social media all over the place of officers using large words, complex words, being walking thesauruses. That's all that's all well and good, but when your report is being read back to a jury and it ultimately creates confusion, it's not going to help you, right? It's not going to help. They're not going to understand what you're trying to say. Being able to, again, convey that message using emotional tone, like we talked about in one of our earlier questions. That's what you need to do. Not show off how intelligent you are through the use of the English language and through the use of a thesaurus. That's not going to help. And getting back to my point about us being the gatekeepers to the criminal justice system, it's another thing. As a police officer, all you can do is make the arrest and write the report. After that, it is out of your hands unless you're called to testify. And even then, when you're called to testify, you are not the final decision maker. That decision goes to a judge or a jury. There is absolutely zero reason as a police officer to take the outcome of a trial personally. You were never going to make the final decision anyway. But it is your job to bring people to judges and juries so that they could be, or they could not be, unfortunately at times, held accountable for their actions. Always remember that. Let's continue. The opposite example from question 7, a cadet writes, upon arriving, comma, Officer Brown, comma, he went inside the store thinking it sounds more detailed. Being too wordy. Being too wordy will get you in trouble all the time. The lesson that we learned from that, the sentence is actually confusing because it repeats the subject. Officer Brown and he. No need to do it twice. Clear writing is always better than fancy writing. Like, listen, I can't make this stuff up. I really can't. I can't make this stuff up. In reports, every extra or misplaced word, what does it do? What does it do? It creates confusion and weakens credibility because now it looks like you're lying. Is that not what happened when people lie? They start talking in circles. They start going off on tangents. It looks like you're being what's known as evasive. And that's something that we never want to look like as police officers. We want to be clear and concise. Yes, no, the car was orange. That's what she said. He said the jacket was blue. That's what they told me. That's what I went off of. All right. Final question. Last question. This will be a good one for you. It's a bonus question. And this really kind of speaks to the level of education that you have and how you talk and how you write. The question is, or the sentence is rather, the officer didn't see nothing unusual. Officer didn't see nothing unusual. That's very casual conversation. That's very common language that's used in conversation. The officer didn't see nothing unusual. Choose the correct version, parentheses, S, parentheses. So we know that that means there could be more than one. Letter A, the officers didn't seen nothing unusual. B, the officer didn't saw anything unusual. C, the officers didn't see anything unusual. Or D, the officer didn't seen nothing unusual. A, B, C, or D. Give you a moment to get your answers in. Oh, some of the comments in this live were filtered to protect the community's experience. Somebody's talking bad on here. That's no good, guys. We don't do that. You said C, the officers didn't see anything unusual. Is that what you said? Daud? D-A-U-D, is that how you say it? All right. The answer, you're correct, is C. The officers didn't see anything unusual. The explanation, two negatives cancel out that you have in the other sentences. In the first sentence in the A and D. That's a good job. You did a good job there. Two negatives cancel out. Always remember the logical connection is to evaluate awareness of grammar clarity versus slang. You can't write how you talk unless you use the proper English language in the way that you talk all the time. There's levels to this thing when it comes to communication. There's levels to it. You go certain places, you have to use the proper English language to build a connection with a person. You go other places, you may be able to get away with some slang. In fact, they probably would appreciate the slang a little bit more because now they think or they believe, and they're led to believe that you're not a robot. One of the things that gets taught a lot is that you always want to be a professional. Fair enough. That is true. You always want to be a professional, but you have to have the ability to connect and meet the person that you're interacting with at their level. Because a person can't rise to a level they've never achieved before. It's like when I first moved to the city that I live in now. I came from small town, Youngstown, Ohio. When I first moved to what was a bigger city to me, I had never seen successful people of color in that way. Not business suits walking downtown on different levels of high-rise buildings. I'd never seen it. And I was like, man, I want to be like that. Something to strive for. But if a person has never seen it, then they'll never be able to reach it because they don't know what it looks like. I'm a visual learner. A lot of people are visual learners. This is how we learn, by seeing it. So remember that. You have to evaluate grammar clarity versus slang. The opposite example, a cadet writes in a report, the officer didn't see nothing unusual, thinking it sounds natural because that's how people talk in conversation. I'm repeating and reinforcing this stuff here because you have to make the break from casual conversation to appropriate English use of the English language when you're looking at these tests. These tests are not going to be written with any type of slang in them. They're not going to be looking for that. That's for on the job. The lesson that we learned is that from the first question, that's a double negative. It actually means the officer did see something unusual, right? Two negatives cancel out, they equal a positive. So are you saying that he didn't see something, or are you saying that he did see something? In professional writing, grammar clarity matters more than how something sounds in speech. Grammar clarity matters more than how something sounds in speech. All right? Here's the big reveal. I told you before, I understand that the process before the academy is truly the process that keeps people out of law enforcement. The academy is challenging. There is no such thing as hard. It's just the work that's required. This civil service and the background and the polygraph and the oral interviews, this is a part of the process too. This is just the work that has to be done in order to get to where you need to be. So I'm here to shine a light in the darkness and uncertainty of what the process is like. Hello, Cinderella. How are you? I'm here to shine a light into the darkness and to fill the void, because I see there's a need in the area of the process, right? The civil service exam, the physical readiness, the oral interviews, the background checks, the polygraphs, those things. So what I've done is I have created what's known as the Police Academy Blueprint. I told you earlier, you have to go to 15 different places in order to find all the information that you need. And that ultimately can cause analysis paralysis, something that I have struggled with in the past, especially when I was preparing for a career in law enforcement. But inside of the Police Academy Blueprint, everything you need is there, from the civil service exam to the oral interviews to the polygraph to how to prepare for the background check. All of that's there. And I created it because I care. I care about people and their success, and I care about law enforcement and its continued evolution over the course of time. I don't believe that there are less and less people who want to get into law enforcement. What I do believe is that the younger Americans in this country have less and less access to the information that they need. And so they just go a different route, because in today's world, access to information is basically free. I always say, in 2 or 3 YouTube videos, you could probably learn how to do open heart surgery. It might not be pretty, but you get the gist of it. And so through this process of having the Police Academy Blueprint, I want to give you the information that you need in order to find success to get to the academy. Because if we're being completely honest here, nobody cares about law enforcement more than I do. And I say that with an extremely high level of confidence, because the things that I do in the Hughes Initiative, this is not my job. I am a regular patrol police officer. That's my job. That's what I get paid to do. I get paid to show up and be on patrol and take calls for service and be of service to people. That's what I do. The Hughes Initiative, this is my ministry. This is what the Lord has called me to do. There are people inside of law enforcement who should be doing what I'm doing, but they choose not to, and that's okay. And so when you see them start to do what I'm doing, understand, I look at it as imitation is the highest form of flattery. Ultimately, it leads to more people getting into law enforcement and finding success in a career in law enforcement. And that's the ultimate goal. That's what matters the most to me. So we have the Police Academy Blueprint. It will be available on Black Friday, November 28th of this year. That's when it drops. So you need to follow the system that I put in place in order to get access to it. And that's this. The first thing you have to do, you have to download the Police Academy Prep 20-day starter plan and pre-academy checklist. There's a survey, you'll get the PDF, and then I'll be able to connect with you. And then through the website, you have access to all these other resources. Dominate Your First Year as a Cop, something that you absolutely must read before your first day in a police station. This is your guide. This is your manual. This is what you go by. We've sold over 2,000 copies of Dominate Your First Year as a Cop in a year. I know I ain't a #1 bestseller, but I found through my surveys and through people reaching out to me that Dominate Your First Year as a Cop is something that you want to have in your hand. The other thing is this. If you are a leader in law enforcement or a police officer, then it would behoove you. Yes, hold on. There is a workout plan. You better believe it. There's a workout plan, and we're going to be putting out some of the content that we have related to learning how to work out, especially if you've never worked out before. But just hold that thought. Just hold that thought. The EAR model, where we discuss ego, arrogance, and rage in new police officers and in law enforcement in general. This is the program that helps you open up your mind and dive deep into What causes you to have an ego? Because that's where the real work is done. It's done internally. There's a lot of other trainings out there, but there's nothing like the EAR model. So if you are a leader in law enforcement or you're a police officer, you want to schedule that. We're going to make it available to where you can watch one of my presentations of it so that you can have access to it privately. What I found in the EAR model is this. It's the training that the leaders in law enforcement think that the police officers should have, and also the police officers in law enforcement think that the leaders should have. So it works both ways. And lastly, the Citizens Police Education Program. Now, this is one of my favorites. I spent a lot of time putting this together for American citizens, but also for police officers too. The average person forgets 70 to 75% of what they've learned within 24 hours. And so I'm thinking about police officers at the academy. I'm thinking about them at the academy, where we have the educational stuff mixed in with the tactical stuff, mixed in with the physical stuff. And I know, for example, one day we were learning Fourth and Fifth Amendments. That was after we ran, and then we're going to the range. And you want to be proficient in all these places, but unfortunately, the education part gets kind of lost because we only really go over it maybe once or twice, and then we have a test, and then we move on to the next section. So when you come out of the academy, what we see on social media is police officers who haven't remembered some of the scenarios in which the Fourth Amendment applies, Fifth Amendment, search and seizure, the levels of police encounters, the levels of suspicion. All of that stuff is inside of the Citizens Police Education Program. It comes with a workbook, because you know a workbook. Well, where's the workbook? It comes with a workbook, right? It comes with scenarios. It comes with a test, all to help you accurately gauge your understanding and to reinforce those lessons that you may or may not have learned in the academy. And for American citizens, please, I'm begging you to join the Citizens Police Education Program. As many videos as there are of police officers not understanding the Constitution and their rights, there are just as many, if not more, videos of American citizens saying and doing the wrong thing, thinking that they're right because they watched one or two YouTube videos or TikTok videos or Instagram videos or Facebook videos. That's not going to help you. The primary reason I created the Citizens Police Education Program was for American citizens. Because as an American citizen, when you do not understand the law and what your rights are, and you resist the lawful order, which you think is unlawful because that's what the video told you, when you resist a lawful order from a police officer, then you unintentionally and unknowingly open the door for force to be used against you. And force is always ugly. And so you have force used against you, you maybe get arrested, you go to file a lawsuit, and you find that it was actually you who was in the wrong. And that situation could have been avoided. So go to the website, sign up for these programs. This live that we're doing now for the Police Academy Prep, we're going to be doing this every Thursday at noon. Set a reminder. If you're at work, you ain't got to watch, just listen. If you have an opportunity to watch it. Because we're going to be doing this every Thursday at noon. Next week, this week coming up, actually. I gave you a little teaser on Sunday, but this Thursday, we're going to be doing math comprehension. Those questions that you would find on a civil service exam, basic math. All right. So I want to thank you all for joining me again here at the Hughes Initiative Podcast, your number one source for all law enforcement education as it relates to interactions with American citizens, and the only place where American citizens can get clear, concise, and detailed explanations for their law enforcement questions while also receiving an awesome free education on how to interact with police officers. I want to thank you all for joining me. Again, Thursdays at noon, the Hughes Initiative podcast will be live again. Go to the website, download the PDF, the Police Academy Prep. American citizens, get signed up for the Citizens Police Education Program. Order your copy of Dominate Your First Year as a Cop as well. Stick and stay. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful week until we meet again. Bye.